I'm Morgean Hirt. I'm the Director of Credentialing for ATD. I've been with ATD for 2 years last week, so relatively new to the talent development space, just still getting the lingo. But prior to coming to ATD, my background is in certification and standard setting. So I've worked with a wide number of different professions creating professional standards in places all over the world. So it's been an exciting time to join ATD right when we started the research project for the Talent Development Capability Model. And so I'm really excited to bring it to you here today. And so here we go. I'm going to talk today, as I said, about ATD's new Talent Development Capability Model, and hopefully provide you with an overview of what's included in it, as well as how you can use the tools that ATD created, as Rob said, to really spend some time creating a development plan for yourself and for your team, and how you can use it to help leverage things for your organization. I always like to really start out with, what are we talking about? Talent Development Capability Model is a new term in everyone's lexicon, but it is essentially a competency framework that's designed to set that common standard for what talent development professionals need to know and be able to do in order to be effective and successful. Some of you may be familiar with our previous competency model, which was released in 2013. That was that sort of pentagon shape that sat on a base with areas of expertise. ATD has been in the competency modeling business since 1941, and this particular iteration is actually our 9th iteration, and it really is designed to help people develop in their career at any stage of their career. And this particular model was designed specifically to really be flexible and customizable so that you can use it to reflect either your current job, so you can, again, close skill gaps to improve your knowledge and skills with where you currently sit, or to build knowledge and skills that might be the stepping stone to that next opportunity. The model was introduced about a year ago, and so today we're going to dive in a little deeper and take a look at what we see. First and foremost, ATD's competency frameworks are research-based. And some of you may recall, again, a little over 2 years ago, completing our occupational survey. We had a group, an advisory group of thought leaders, people like Elaine Beek, John Conet, Bill Rothwell, who sort of helped us steer and oversee the project. And then we also had a task force of on the ground, in the trenches, talent development professionals, many of whom were certified at the time as CPLPs, now CPTDs, who helped us develop this occupational survey. And basically, they created a laundry list of every possible thing that someone might need to know or be able to do as a talent development professional. This was the first research opportunity that ATD had to really look at what does talent development mean. The last study that we did in 2013 was still under the banner of ASPD when we were still training and development. And so this research provided us with the opportunity to sort of poke at the edges of the envelope of talent development and look at the other professions and the other skill sets that sort of bump up against some of what we do, and really kind of put a stake in the ground for what does talent development look like. Through all of that brainstorming from our advisory group and our task force, we created 197 knowledge and skill statements and 15 demographic questions that were part of that occupational survey. And as part of that, we asked people really 2 questions, was to look at those individual knowledge and skill statements and tell us how important it was that they know that thing or be able to do that thing, perform that skill for their current job right now today, but then also to help us use a little bit of a crystal ball to peek into the future and tell us how important they thought those knowledge and skill statements would be for their job 3 to 5 years in the future. And we did that so that we could create a framework that we hoped would help keep talent development professionals sort of at least on top of that curve of change, if not slightly ahead of it. So we really tried to build a framework that would be future-focused and flexible and adaptable to help, again, make sure that our talent development professionals can have the knowledge and skills that will position them to help their organizations deal with the change that is coming. And we certainly learned about change over the past several months. So our occupational survey was distributed pretty much as far and wide as we could. It went certainly outside of ATD membership walls through people who've been to our conference, purchased a course, read something on our website, people who were certified out through the chapters, as well as through open links. And what resulted was over 3,300 usable responses to the survey. It was actually our highest response ever to this kind of survey. We had a couple thousand more people start the survey, but you need to complete at least 56% of it in order for that content to be included. And then after sifting through all that data and going old school with note cards on a big giant table, sorting these knowledge and skill statements to really create this framework, we ended up with what is now the Talent Development Capability Model. Now, before we dive into what's included, we get some questions about why the move from a competency model to a capability model. And so really just a few words about that. As part of this process, part of the research, we certainly conducted several focus groups. Some of you may have had the opportunity to go to ATD headquarters to participate in one of our courses or certificate programs. And we certainly made use of those folks that came into our offices when we were still able to do that, so that we could use them as a focus group over lunch to talk about the competency model that existed at the time. We also used a group of folks at ATD called our CTDO Next group. This is a group of Chief Talent Development Officers who are particularly feature-focused, who get together frequently and talk about trends and a bunch of other things, write some white papers for us, those types of things. And so we really dug into what was then the existing competency model and talked with people about that. And what we heard repeatedly was how limiting the word competency sounds. It's sort of about what you can do right now today. It's not particularly dynamic. Some people also felt that word was really academic. And so while people might have heard about ATD's competency model, they never really took the time to take a look at it because they assumed it was sort of an academic exercise that wasn't for them. Our CTDO Next group also re-emphasized sort of the limiting sound of that word competency. We often talk about people being incompetent or not being competent to stand trial, those kinds of things that has a negative connotation. And we really wanted something, again, much more dynamic that would help reflect the agility that talent development professionals need to have and that we hoped to build within the profession through this model. And so we landed upon the word capability, which, of course, competency is part of capability. You have to have those knowledge and skills. But capability, of course, is really about integrating those knowledge and skills and being able to apply them sometimes in new and unexpected situations and really to be able to generate an outcome. So that is why we have moved to Talent Development Capability Model. It's not that we're trying to inject new language into the profession, but we really felt it best reflected the intention of what was behind this new framework. So what we ended up with was the Talent Development Capability Model. And this is a model that includes 188 of those 197 statements that were on that occupational survey. The other ones weren't rated highly enough to be included in the model. And it's divided into 3 domains of practice: building personal capability, developing professional capability, and then impacting organizational capability. And we'll spend some time diving into what's included in each of those. But a couple things about this is you'll note the actual shape of the model, this kind of funny yin-yang sort of thing. But what was important to us was demonstrating that there really is no hierarchy of importance but among these 3 domains. What our research definitely showed was that For example, personal capabilities are just as important and in some cases more important than some of the more specialized technical skills. And we also wanted to reflect the sort of expanded scope of talent development and the true partnership and impact that the role and the function can have on an organization's ability to achieve its goals. Here, we also wanted to kind of show that individuals really need to blend the knowledge and skills across all three domains in order to be most effective. The prior model, with its sort of trivial pursuit-like pieces, was kind of role-based to some extent and lended itself to people diving into, I'm an instructional designer, I'm a coach, I deal with performance improvement, and really only focusing on that particular area of expertise. And what we really wanted to emphasize with this model is that even though you might be a trainer and not involved in instructional design, just in facilitating, that having an understanding, at least on some level, of instructional design principles, adult learning principles, how this training is intended to influence behavior to achieve organizational outcomes, all of those things, having some awareness of those aspects was really going to be important for talent development professionals to be successful. So one model, three domains of practice that are then divided into 23 capability areas. And then those 188 knowledge and skill statements are spread amongst those. Again, designed to sort of be future focused, but also really there's hundreds of iterations, thousands of iterations that can be developed from the model in terms of what your job role looks like in your organization. We know that if you put 100 talent development professionals in the room, you're going to have 100 different titles and 100 different job descriptions. And so this model really enables you to go through and identify those things that are most relevant to your role, but then again, also identify either areas of interest to you or things that, again, will help be that stepping stone to that next great role. So let's dive in a little bit and start with building personal capability, not because it's the most important, just because it happens to be first. And here, this domain of practice really embodies those foundational or enabling competencies, what we often call soft skills, which of course are hard to acquire, but can be taught, which is the good news. These are really those interpersonal skills that you need to build a good team culture, to build trust and engagement within an organization and within the people that you're working with. Many of these things could have been found in the earlier model, kind of on that base of that pentagon. Unfortunately, that meant not a lot of people paid attention to those things, and that also to some extent included ATD and its programming. And so by elevating these competencies to be on even par with, say, the professional capabilities, we're trying to demonstrate the importance of focusing on these. So, of course, you have communication, important to be able to do so clearly, persuasively, and communication, of course, carries through many different roles. Emotional intelligence and decision-making, the importance of being able to read the room if you're a facilitator, those kinds of things, being able to bring all of that to bear in your work. Collaboration and leadership, here's where we find those plays well with others, knowledge and skill statements, and these are personal attributes, so this is where you find your personal leadership skills, as opposed to teaching those to others, your ability to negotiate and to, again, build that team culture. So that's important as well. Project management, of course, important to talent development to be able to deliver learning solutions on time and on budget. Here we find cultural awareness and inclusion. In the previous model, it was called global mindset and was actually added to the older model back in 2014. Here we sort of expanded that definition to not just dealing with different cultures outside of the United States, for example, but we know there's all different kinds of cultures, and of course, the increased focus on DE&I topics, you can find all of those issues and cultural awareness and inclusion. One of the newer areas, compliance and ethical behavior, super sexy topic, but important. And in this particular capability area, we're not talking about the development of compliance training, but this is about the talent development professionals' compliance with laws and operating with integrity. So it includes things like, being aware of trademark and copyright issues when developing programs. It includes things like issues around accessibility, also around protecting learners' personally identifying information. Also being somewhat aware, at least familiar with, on some level, with other laws and regulations that may impact the work that you do. Perhaps it's industry specific. But again, being aware of those things and knowing the impact they have on the work that you do. And certainly last but not least, lifelong learning, which simply reflects, of course, the passion that most talent development professionals have to developing others, but also to developing that culture of learning within an organization. So again, that's really personal capability, domain of practice, and of course, important to all professionals, but focusing on those knowledge and skills that are of particular importance to talent development professionals. So we'll move on to developing professional capability. So this, of course, is the key area where you find those technical specialized skills for talent development professionals. It includes the bulk of what was in the previous competency model. So here you'll find instructional design and training delivery and facilitation. You will also find evaluating impact, which used to be called measuring learning impact, but we've sort of expanded that definition of what kinds of things we want to evaluate their impact, not just learning solutions, but sort of how those behaviors change the ability of the organization to achieve its goals. We also have the expanded capability area of technology application. Previously, that largely dealt with learning management systems, and while that is definitely included in this particular capability area, we also have expanded that to having the knowledge and skill to be able to sort of critically evaluate the needs for certain types of technology, whether that's in the learning space or whether it's in technology to help employees better or more efficiently complete their job roles, and how to integrate that technology across the organization when you're talking about learning solutions and things like that. Also, the ability to integrate some of those systems across the organization. Certainly not all the technical components, but having awareness of the importance of trying to integrate some of those things. So this is a significantly expanded area from the previous competency model. Here we find knowledge management, also particularly important, not super popular among people, but I think that knowledge management perhaps has a particularly increased level of importance now that many of us are dealing with working with a much more dispersed workforce. Sure, we talk about codifying formal institutional knowledge, but how do we capture and share some of that informal knowledge that used to be shared over the water cooler, that now is sort of can't quite share it over Slack or Teams the way you might have an informal conversation with a colleague in the kitchen. So I think knowledge management will increase in importance, and that's not something that I think we really thought would necessarily happen previously. Here, coaching, that was also in the previous model. Here we also find a whole new capability area around learning sciences. This, of course, some of those concepts were included in the previous model, but were embedded in the instructional design area of expertise. But this whole new capability area really reflects the explosion of research into learning and brain science and cognition. And so we've included that capability area to demonstrate the importance of bringing that knowledge to bear within our work. And while sometimes we may think of instructional designers and to some extent trainers really needing to focus on learning science topics, and being aware of them. I really think everyone who touches talent development, having some understanding of that adult brain would be helpful in order to be able to communicate out goals and results as well. And last but not least, career and leadership development, the final capability in this domain. This is actually a new content for our capability model, which kind of is surprising because, of course, talent development and ATD itself have all been about career and leadership development for many years. But this is the first time that that knowledge and skill set has been codified in a competency model. So as you would expect, again, those technical, professional, specialized skills that really are central to talent development found here. And so now moving on to impacting organizational capability. And this is where we find many of the knowledge and skill statements that reflect sort of expanded scope that talent development has developed. And it really looks kind of at the strategic and forward-thinking aspects of talent development and tying that function together to the success of an organization. Some of these topics were in the previous competency model. So for example, business insight, that used to sit on the bottom and was called business acumen. But again, really increasing the importance of talent development professionals understanding not only budgets and things like that, but the implications of ROI for particular activities, those types of things, and importantly, how to communicate those results up to organizational leadership. Change management in the previous model, something that obviously was very important over the past several months. Performance improvement in the previous model. Previously, we had managing learning programs, which has sort of morphed into talent strategy and management. And this really has a couple of buckets within it. It's one of our largest capability areas. So here it really focuses on creating the understanding and awareness of the role and purpose of the talent development function within an organization. It includes identifying talent pipeline and how you, to some extent, recruit and evaluate people and move people through job roles, so creating a talent pipeline and advancement opportunities for people. But then also a little bit of that sort of workforce planning aspect to it as well. So we are helping an organization pre-solve for the future challenges. And we're going to talk about the future when we get to future readiness to that particular capability area. But really this capability area is around helping talent development be a good partner with organizational leadership and to help anticipate some of those talent needs, identifying people who are ready to be upskilled, where you have holes in the organization, so that you can either recruit or upskill people to fill those needs of knowledge and skill. Organization development and culture, also a relatively new capability area. This, of course, is around that developing a learning culture within the organization, employee engagement, those kinds of things, building trust and dependency, if you will, in a good way on talent development for the organization. So that's a bit a new content for the competency model as well. And data and analytics reflects the rise of big data and the need to be able to think in advance when you're developing learning solutions, how you're going to measure and track those, and then how you're going to report those results back up to the C-suite. I think it's also important to remember that sometimes what we want to report out, and believe me, I get super geeky about capability model data and about certification exam data, but it's not always what people want to hear or the information that will be helpful to them to make decisions. And so part of data and analytics is about making sure you understand the needs of the organization, of leadership, of other business units, so that you can prepare to collect and deliver that information as part of those talent development solutions. And then last but not least, future readiness, certainly a whole new capability area. And this is where we really honed in on trying to make sure that talent development professionals have the knowledge and skills that they need to help their organization be prepared for the future that is essentially already here. This particular capability includes things around environmental scanning. And so that includes scanning the industry in which you work so that you can understand trends and things that are impacting it that your organization may need to react to. It's about scanning talent development and what trends and things are emerging that you can leverage for your solutions within your organization. And of course, also being aware of labor market and other societal trends that may impact how well people can perform the work that they need to do, how easy or difficult it's going to be to recruit or hire new folks, those kinds of things. And so being ready for that. It also includes things like fostering innovation and creative thinking, not just within yourself, but with helping to drive that within the organization. And also being certainly aware of things like emerging technologies and again, how you can leverage those for your organization. So impacting organizational capability, again, is really about demonstrating how talent development can really be a driving force within the organization, impacting behavior and helping an organization achieve its goals. That's a lot of stuff. It is a more expanded model, but hopefully better represents the full scope of how talent development can be influential within an organization.